Okay, welcome back, everybody. I hope you found some good things to write about this morning. One of the things that I've been thinking a lot about this morning is how grateful I am that you guys will allow me to start my day with all of you, and it's something that I appreciate. Today, I want to talk about something that's been on my mind actually for the last, let's see, we're in November, let's say since March. And the topic is not COVID, it's fear. It's fear. I think there has been a lot of fear produced this year by the fearmongers. And when I say fearmongers, it's like the cheesemongers and the fishmongers. It's the people who peddle fear. And a lot of that we see through social media, we see on the news. And it started with COVID. We went into a big election cycle this year. And every time I turned on the TV to catch up on what was happening with the election, there was always somebody peddling fear. And every time I looked at social media, which is not often for me, I'm not a big social media guy, but I do have people around me who look at it all the time, and they would share posts, they would share things they had seen in social media, and it was all fear-based. It was fear that if Trump won, then this would happen. And if Biden won, then this would happen. And if Kanye won, then the whole world would just fall apart. So there was a lot of fear being peddled lately. And so it's been a topic that's been on my mind for several months. And, you know, I don't want to spend a lot of time talking today about the fear that's being produced by the fearmongers. What I want to talk about is the fear that's inherent in our jobs, because that's something that doesn't typically go away after the election cycle's over, after everybody's immune to COVID, and that goes away. It's really the day-to-day things that we do in our jobs that create fear for us. And what are those things? Those things can be like prospecting, or they can be listing appointments. There's any number of things that we're asked to do in our daily lives that create fear. For example, today I was asked to do morning ascent. I've never led morning ascent, and I've never had to read through the morning affirmations without a room full of people around me to carry me when I flubbed up on the pronunciation of words or forgot a piece. And so, to be honest, today I've had butterflies getting ready for this. And so this is just an example of one thing in my job that creates fear for me. As I've been thinking about this, I've realized that fear can affect us in two different ways. In one way, it can be a motivator, a really powerful motivator. And in the other way, it can be a paralyzer. It's kind of like the fight or flight response. And my question to you today is, how does fear affect you, and how can we move it? If you're sitting there going, boy, fear affects me by paralyzing me. I get stuck. I don't know what to do. I want to run away. I want to just hang out in my house and watch Netflix all day. What we need to think about is, how can we move that from being paralyzed to being motivated? And some of you might look at me and say, well, what does that mean? How does fear motivate you? Fear is an emotion that is totally normal in everybody. I've just shared with you today something that created fear in me, which is everything we just did up till this point. It's normal, and it's okay to be afraid. It's totally okay. Everybody feels it. And we all show it in different ways. And it manifests in us by butterflies. I think a lot of times, oh, I've got butterflies. Well, what they're really expressing is, I'm afraid of something. I have some fear going on. And it's often present in a win-lose situation, or when the stakes are high. So if there's an emotionally charged issue, you'll feel fear. If it's like it's a make or break situation, it's a win or lose situation, you'll feel fear. And again, that's totally normal. Now, how do we make it so that it's a motivator? And I've got a couple stories about how fear really is a great motivator. And what it motivates us to do is to prepare. When it comes down to it, I couldn't get out of morning ascent. What was the best thing I could do? What was the best thing I could do, and take the fear of, could I pronounce all the words in the affirmations properly? Would I look dumb on camera? Would I mess up? What can I do with that? I can prepare. And that's exactly what I did. What I'm going to give you just a glimpse into what's happened up until this point today. Last night, I printed off the morning affirmations. I took them home last night and reviewed them several times while I was, walking my dog, hanging out with the family. I even read them aloud to my family and got some feedback from them on how I did. Now, that's what I did to prepare so that I had confidence going into today, even though I still felt the butterflies. Okay, we can use it to prepare. As an attorney, I was in the courtroom regularly for 10 years. And towards the end of my time going to court regularly, there were attorneys, junior attorneys that I supervised that I was trying to train up and help transition to take over my role as the senior attorney in the courtroom. And they would look at me and constantly say, well, it's different for us. It's different for us than it is for you. And I always wondered, and I would ask them, why? Why do you think it's different for me than it is for you? And they'd say, well, you know what you're doing, and it looks so smooth, and you look so at home in the courtroom. And I would remind them that every time I set foot in the courtroom, I had butterflies. Driving to the courthouse, I wanted to throw up. Walking into the courthouse, my knees were shaking, my palms were cold and sweaty. This was regular. It was, and you might be looking at me going, thinking, oh my gosh, how could you do that for 10 years? And when I say regularly, I was in court at least once a week for 10 years. And every single time I'd have the butterflies, the sweaty palms, walking into the courtroom. And then but here's what would happen. The minute I would stand in front of the judge, a calm would come over me and I would be in the zone. If for some of you, maybe Joe Montana fans, he talked a lot about being in the zone in high pressure situations. That didn't mean I wasn't terrified walking into that room, but what it did do and what I allowed it, the effect I allowed it to have on me was to prepare. I worked hard and sometimes late into the night, making sure that I knew what the case was about. I had planned and mentally thought through a bunch of different scenarios that might be thrown at me by the judge, by the other attorney. And if you want to think about court in a way that maybe relates more to what you do, think of a listing appointment where your top competitor is sitting in the same room with you and trying to poke holes in your listing presentation while the seller is sitting there trying to decide who's more right, who's more wrong. I said, a lot of times fair come into a win or lose situation. Court is a win or lose situation. It is the opposite of everything we learn in business, which is, here, let's try to get a win-win. It's win-lose. And I would feel that all the time. Now, there were attorneys that I worked with that became successful in the courtroom. And how did they become successful? They understood, oh, it's scary. And it's okay. I'm just going to take that fear, use it as a motivator to prepare so that when I walk in, I'm ready to put on a good presentation for the judge and for my client. And then there were attorneys who allowed it to paralyze them. And those attorneys are no longer in the business. It was too stressful. They allowed it to drive them away from the tremendous investment in tuition and time to get a law degree, to pass the bar, and now they're out of the business. And so we need to look at it and be careful. I think we see fear as a powerful motivator in the military. If you look at the military, they prepare and they prepare and they rehearse and they train and they train and they train and they train and they train. And why do they do that so much? Because the minute they jump out of the plane or they get landed on the beach in Normandy and the reality of war hits, they need that training, that preparation to kick in so that calm comes over them and they just do what they've been taught to do. Otherwise, fear would absolutely paralyze them in the moment when it's a life or death situation. I'm going to kick over to sales for a minute. I worked with a salesman as a client for a while, and when he would feel himself getting complacent, meaning that calling on clients, prospecting, and he was not in real estate sales, he was in other sales, but every time he would feel himself get complacent and not feel the fear motivating him, he would go out and buy a new car he could not afford, which I thought was insanity. But when he explained it to me, it made a lot of sense. And what he was doing was he was creating an uncomfortable, fearful situation for himself to motivate himself to prospect more, to get out there more, so that he could sell and escalate, elevate his sales production to a point where he wanted it. But that new car payment that he could not afford unless he drove his production higher was the motivator, and the fear of default. I'm not proposing that that's what we should be doing. The last thing I'd like to talk about is listing presentations. Not too long ago, I was walking through the halls of one of our offices, and an agent grabbed me, a newer agent, who had his very first listing presentation, and it was no small deal. And this is an agent who had basically left his career. He has decided, I want to be a real estate agent full-time. He has taken the risk. Is there fear that he won't get that listing presentation? 100%. And he reached out to me and said, hey, I need help. And what I did was we coordinated with his manager and helped him prepare and prepare and prepare. And we rehearsed. We actually rehearsed what the seller would say to them so that he could have a very successful listing presentation. And why was he fearful? Why did he have the butterflies? Because there was a lot riding on this deal. And again, that's normal. It's okay to feel those feelings. The question is, what do we do to prepare? Now, at Everest, we have a bunch of things available to help you prepare, okay? Let's recognize, hey, it's okay to be scared. It's okay to be fearful. Now, what can I do? Let me just rattle off some things that we offer. We have Morning Ascent. We're here together to learn and grow and together. And we have the morning affirmations. If you really pay attention to what those morning affirmations are, they're really, it's like a major league ball player having his walk-up song as he goes up to bat, right? They're meant to get you pumped up and ready to go succeed. They're here to help you have the self-confidence that you know I have prepared enough that I can then fight through the fear. And when I sit down, when it matters, when I sit down with that seller in the listing presentation, when I sit down to prospect, and I know I hate rejection, I'm afraid of all the rejection, that mentally you will get in the zone because you'll know what to do and how to do it. We offer skills training at base camps, right? How can you do your job a little better? What things are offered? That's a thing that we offer. There's individual and group coaching with your managers. We're aligned with coaching companies if you need more, that you can go hire private coaches to help you as well. We have role plays. Role plays are offered twice a day. They're all by Zoom right now, but there's one that's based in Utah. There's one that's based in California. It doesn't matter which one. They're both powerful tools. That's a great place to practice. It's like the military. Prepare, 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 prepare. Practice, 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 practice. As an attorney, when I would go in on big cases, we would actually have what we call moot court. We would practice actually trying the case before we'd go try the case. Why would we do that? Because that practice made it so that when we, regardless of the feelings we felt when we were driving up to the courthouse, we would relax as soon as it would start, and we'd be effective and powerful attorneys to help our clients. So my invitation to you is figure out, am I motivated or paralyzed by the fear? If I'm paralyzed, what can I do to change that to become motivated? And then take advantage of all the things that are offered to help you prepare, so that when the moment comes, when it's time to sit down and prospect, when it's time to sit down in front of a listing presentation or do whatever it is about this job that creates fear for you, you know you're prepared, so that when you sit down and do it, the calm comes over and you can succeed. Thank you for letting me be with you. Let's do closing affirmations.